The church is a community's heart and center. The church goes up, then the community takes form around it. Or that's how it works in this build, at least. From a practical view, you can't get tier 2 houses without the church. It's also a fantastic mood boost for your civilians, one that doesn't cost you an active worker after it's done building. But do know, this build isn't really optimal. Instead, the build is just to get the church as fast as possible. I wasn't kidding when I said we were going to build the church, then the community around it. Anyway, enough preamble. Let's start building. To speed up the entirety of the early game, we are going to immediately order a second oxen and put down a hitching post. The speed boost to construction from that second oxen is extremely high given the small resource commitment. For actual structures, we start with a logging camp, then we get the saw pit and storehouse. Here, we are building all three at once and using the construction priority to control the order in which things are built. The advantage of doing this, instead of being idle, your oxen will start bringing the lumber to the lower priority buildings. The storehouse here is optional, you can get by without it, but the efficiency it provides is rather nice. After the logging camp is done, we assign two families to it. One is pretty much going to be permanent, and the second we are going to bounce around a lot. During this time, I'm going to queue up a hunting camp. Need to keep them oxen busy. As our saw pit finishes, we are going to assign a single family to it, same as the storehouse. With a family on the storehouse and a second on the saw pit, we are going to hit our 20 planks really quickly. The second we do, we want to throw down our church. In the meantime, we want to start planning out how we want our village to look by placing some roads and figuring out where we want our houses. I really wish we could throw down some fountains or hedges, something to make the place pop, but that's just not in the game yet. The other thing that needs to happen when we hit 20 planks is we need to move the family that's working on the saw pit into the hunter's camp. I did the hunter's camp here because it was convenient. The berry hut and fisherman shack provide much more food, so it's generally better to focus one of them first and get the hunter camp second. To increase the speed of building the church, I pulled the second family off the lumberyard and the family off the storage house. Our food will soon run into issues unless we focus it quickly after the church is done, so I'm setting up a foraging hut to take advantage of our rich berry patch. We are going to set the church to the highest priority so it gets focused first, followed by the berry hut. This is so we can plan out other buildings without worrying about those two not being built. There's a bit of time here, even under 3 times speed, to plan out burgages, roads, and further set up with our village the way we want it to look. For burgage lots, if you plan on building for efficiency, you want to plan out some veggie lots. These lots, you want to make them nice and long, so the garden will provide a lot of food. These lots I generally do a bit wider, so they also provide for 2 families. The more people on the garden, the more food you will get out of it. Also, make sure you are doing at least 5 lots. This way your village can upgrade to the next tier, and it will give you that tech point to spend. As we only have 30 regional wealth at this point, we are going to turn a single one of the long lots into a veggie lot and leave the rest for later. While the burgages are finishing construction, I'm going to do the family expansion on the one with the veggie lot, as well as one other lot. Then we are going to put down the woodcutter's lodge with low priority and a tanner set to very low. Spend your tech point however you wish. In this case, I'm just trying to rush out the new barn animal upgrades on the burgages to see if it's worth it, as I haven't messed with it yet, so I'm going to pick the passive food income. With the tannery done, after they set up a clothing stall, we can get tier 2 housing if we want, which is where we can start getting tools to create military units. In that instance, we would set up a mine and a bloomer so we could produce metal. We would also make sure to have planks to spare. In this instance, you would bounce a family between the mine and the bloomer, as well as a family between the logging camp and the saw pit, while also upgrading 2 houses, one to produce shields and the other to produce your weapon of choice. It's possible if you do this to start getting military units by the end of year 1, but that's really not this build's intended purpose. The other route, the one that this build actually has in mind, is instead to build a trading post and spend the last bit of wealth we have on a trade route to start bringing in more money. This will let us purchase more veggie lots, chicken coops, and start to ramp up the expansion speed of our village, as starting year 2 we will have 4 foods: meat, berries, eggs, and veggies. We will also have clothing and the church, all of which will increase the mood and increase the rate at which new families will join the village. Earlier, I said I was doing this town in particular to try out the new pen expansion you can get from the house, as I hadn't tried it yet. They are rather bad. Pigs kinda suck. They just don't really do much. So for large lots, veggies are still number 1, and for passive income that requires no work or people or anything else, it is chickens that are still king of the roost. With all that said, I hope you enjoyed the guide. I'm going to do a second guide as an alternative to this one that is designed with efficiency in mind for those who want mega towns quickly with the church as a strong center, as this one is, based off building the church and the community around it, which is fun, and depending on where you are, it might be accurate, but in game terms, it leaves you with a low population at the end of year 1, which is really not good for most scenarios. That's all for now, so until next time, bye Z's.